Have you ever wondered why, no matter how kind or capable you are, people seem to turn against you? Why your confidence feels like a crime? Why your silence is mistaken for arrogance and your ambition for threat? Tonight, we shall uncover the truth that most men refuse to speak. That hatred is not random. It is the shadow that power always casts. You believe they hate you for what you've done, but in truth, they hate you for who you've become. Power does not always reveal itself in crowns or thrones. Sometimes it reveals itself in silence. In the way others grow uneasy when you enter a room, in the sudden tension behind their laughter, in the faint smile that conceals a blade. Hatred, my friend, not random. It is a currency, silently exchanged in every human interaction. It flows wherever power is unevenly distributed, wherever one soul dares to rise above another. You may think people hate you for your mistakes, but more often, they hate you for your mirror, the reflection of their own inadequacy shining back at them through your success. When you begin to climb, when you speak with certainty, when you act without seeking permission, something ancient stirs in others. Envy, a quiet, invisible force that corrodes the hearts of the mediocre. It is the unspoken confession that they see something in you they cannot become. They do not despise you because you failed them. They despise you because you remind them of what they failed to achieve themselves. Each gesture of confidence you display reveals their weakness. Each victory of yours exposes their stagnation. The human heart cannot tolerate imbalance. It demands equality, not in opportunity, but in comfort. When your existence disrupts that comfort, people instinctively seek to correct it. If they cannot rise to your level, they will try to drag you down to theirs. Some will do it with ridicule, others with silence, and a few with carefully crafted concern disguised as friendship. They will say you have changed. They will question your motives. But what they truly mean is you have grown beyond our reach. You must understand this hatred is often a confession of inferiority. When someone cannot control you, when your actions do not rely on their approval, they lose their sense of dominance. And what they cannot dominate, they fear. What they fear, they resent. What they resent, they eventually seek to destroy. Thus begins the hidden economy of envy, a marketplace of secret emotions where resentment is traded for a sense of moral superiority. They will not admit they are jealous. Instead, they will call you arrogant. They will not say they wish they were you. They will claim you are unjust, ruthless, or undeserving. And you, the rising one, will stand in confusion. You will ask yourself, what have I done to deserve this? The answer, of course, is simple. You dared to exist as yourself. You refused to shrink for their comfort. You chose power over approval. That alone is enough to invite hate. Humanity's deepest instinct is not to admire greatness. It is to neutralize it. When a wolf walks among sheep, the sheep do not discuss his beauty. They discuss how to remove him. Do not make the mistake of trying to please them. When you chase their acceptance, you surrender the very thing that made you hated in the first place. Your individuality. You begin to bend, to soften, to dilute your essence in the name of peace. But peace gained through conformity is not peace, it is quiet defeat. You cannot outlove envy, nor can you outkind resentment. The more generous you become, the more your light exposes their shadows. The more humble you appear, the more they will suspect arrogance hiding beneath it. There is a cruel law at play. Those who feel small will interpret every act of greatness as an insult. Your silence becomes condescension, your success becomes provocation, your confidence becomes mockery. And yet, you must continue. For to stop rising because it offends others is to live as a prisoner of their limitations. Envy has existed since the dawn of ambition. It poisoned brothers, divided nations, and destroyed empires. It is the invisible tax of power, and only the wise learn to pay it without resentment. I learned long ago that people admire virtue only when it costs them nothing. The moment your virtue threatens their vanity, they will call it vice. The crowd celebrates those beneath them, but despises those above. They cheer the fallen, but they plot against the ascended. And yet, paradoxically, it is their hatred that confirms your ascent. For no one envies the weak. No one resents the irrelevant. To be hated is to be recognized as significant enough to disturb someone's illusion of equality. The secret, therefore, is not to avoid hate but to understand its language. When you are envied, it means your power has become visible. When you are whispered about, it means you have entered the arena where your presence matters. The weak cannot stand to see another rise because it forces them to confront their own lack of courage. They do not hate you. They hate the reminder that they too could have been something had they not chosen comfort over conquest. So when you feel their eyes watching you with quiet disapproval, do not shrink. When you sense the coldness in their praise, do not apologize for your warmth. When your victories provoke murmurs instead of applause, understand that you are operating in a different currency. The currency of envy, the silent economy that governs human relations. It is not a punishment, it is proof. Proof that you are no longer ordinary. Proof that your light has become too bright for the dim corridors they inhabit. And so you must walk forward, not in arrogance, but in awareness. For in every circle of men, the one who stands tallest will always attract arrows. The key is not to hide from them, but to learn how to stand still while they fly. There is a peculiar reaction that occurs when truth walks into a room. Silence. Not admiration, not joy, but tension. The kind of silence that carries both fascination and discomfort. You have felt it before, haven't you? That shift in energy when you speak with conviction, when you move with certainty, when you live without apology. It is not the sound of respect. It is the sound of reflection. For in your presence others see something they've long buried, a version of themselves that they were too afraid to become. This is what I call the mirror principle. Every man carries a mirror within him, but few have the courage to look into it. When they meet someone whose strength exposes their weakness, whose confidence highlights their timidity, the reflection becomes unbearable. They begin to hate not the person, but the image that person reflects. You become a living reminder of their hesitation, their unfulfilled potential, their compromises disguised as choices. They cannot destroy the image within themselves, so they turn their aim outward, toward you. Hatred, in its purest form, is often nothing more than self-loathing projected onto another. When you speak truth without fear, when you act without seeking validation, you do not simply live differently. You reveal how most people merely exist. They will call you cold, arrogant, or detached. But what they truly mean is that your independence forces them to confront their dependence. You become their mirror, and they do not like what they see. This is why societies, groups, and even friendships crumble when one person begins to outgrow the collective illusion. People say they want you to succeed, but they want you to succeed just enough to make them feel inspired, not inferior. The moment your success exposes their complacency, admiration turns to hostility. Their eyes still follow you, but now with resentment rather than respect. They start to invent flaws in you so they can feel whole again. They create myths about your intentions so they can protect their fragile sense of virtue. Understand this. People do not see you as you are. They see themselves in relation to you. Your every word, your every movement, becomes a mirror in which their self-image trembles. The insecure interpret confidence as arrogance. The envious interpret strength as cruelty. And the guilty interpret silence as judgment. They are not reacting to you. They are reacting to the version of themselves your existence awakens. Think of a man who lives in shadows. He has grown comfortable there, believing the world outside is cruel and unworthy. Then one day, he meets someone who walks in the sun, unafraid, unapologetic. Suddenly, the darkness he once found comfort in begins to feel suffocating. The light burns his eyes, but not because it is evil, because it reveals what he has refused to see. And instead of stepping into the light himself, he curses the one who carries it. Such is the fate of those who refuse to evolve. They despise evolution when they witness it in another. You will notice this pattern most when you begin to change. At first, they celebrate your progress. They praise your discipline, your ambition, your courage. But the moment your transformation surpasses the boundaries they silently set for you, their tone shifts. The compliments stop. The distance begins. They start to say you've become different. And they are right, you have. You've become a mirror too honest for them to bear. Every truth teller in history was hated before they were honored. Not because their words were wrong, but because they stripped away illusion. People crave lies that comfort them more than truths that confront them. They will build temples to false humility, but burn those who live with genuine confidence. They will praise mediocrity in others to protect their own egos, yet punish excellence when it appears in front of them. For the mirror does not flatter, it exposes. You must learn to see beyond the surface of their hatred. When someone criticizes you harshly, ask yourself, what in me did they see that unsettled them? When someone mocks your ambition, realize they are mourning their own surrender. Every insult is a confession, every sneer, a cry for self-redemption. Most people are not malicious, they are wounded. But wounds that are ignored begin to hate whatever reminds them of healing. So the more authentic you become, the more resistance you will attract. The deeper your self-awareness, the more your presence will disturb others. To be self-possessed is to be seen as threatening. To be emotionally independent is to be labeled unkind. To speak truth in a world built on flattery is to invite exile. But this is the price of authenticity. The mirror must remain clean, even if others throw stones at it. They will accuse you of pride, but they are truly angry at your freedom. For nothing torments the enslaved mind more than the sight of one who has broken his chains. When they hate you, they are not saying, "You are unworthy." They are saying, "You make me see everything I could have been." The mirror principle, then, is not about you being hated. It is about you being revealing. You reveal truths others spend their entire lives avoiding. You strip away the illusion that everyone is equal in courage, in will and vision. And once you understand this law, you stop taking hatred personally. You stop explaining yourself. You stop dimming your light to spare their eyes. You realize that their resentment is not your burden, but your proof. Proof that your presence disturbs illusions, that your words disturb lies, that your existence disturbs comfort. For it is only through reflection that truth begins to emerge, and only through discomfort that transformation begins. There is one crime the world never forgives, the crime of being truly yourself. You may sin, you may deceive, you may even betray, and still, society will find a way to welcome you back. But if you dare to stand apart, if you choose to think with your own mind and walk by your own design, they will brand you dangerous. Humanity has always feared the man who needs nothing from it, because such a man cannot be controlled. And whatever cannot be controlled must be condemned. From birth, they teach you the art of blending in, to speak when spoken to believe what others believe, to seek permission before every bold act of creation. They reward obedience and call it virtue. They punish defiance and call it arrogance. But there comes a moment when the thinking soul begins to suffocate beneath the expectations of the crowd. It begins to sense that conformity is not safety, but slow decay. And when that awakening happens, when you begin to act from your own inner law rather than their collective fear, you instantly become a threat. Not because you wish them harm, but because your freedom exposes their captivity. You see, most people do not hate individuality because they misunderstand it. They hate it because it reminds them of the cage they've agreed to live in. Your courage to stand alone highlights their dependence on approval. Your ability to walk your own path exposes how they've been walking in circles. Every act of independence you commit whispers to them, "You could have done this too," and that whisper becomes unbearable. They will tell you to be humble, but what they mean is stay predictable. They will urge you to be part of something bigger. But what they mean is, become smaller so we can tolerate you. The crowd worships originality only after it is dead and harmless. When it breathes among them, it makes them uneasy. When it speaks truth, it makes them tremble. They will call you a rebel, a heretic, or a fool. Not because you are wrong, but because you are different. To be different is to break an invisible law. The law of sameness that keeps society comfortable. Men love order more than they love truth, and individuality is chaos to the timid. It refuses to bow, refuses to follow, refuses to pretend. The free man walks through life like a mirror that reflects the lies of others. His very presence says, "You do not need permission to exist," and that terrifies those who have built their lives around permission. Consider history. Every figure who rose above the crowd, philosopher, thinker, artist, conqueror, was hated first, celebrated later. They were accused of pride, blasphemy, or madness. But the truth is simpler. They refused to kneel before the altar of conformity. They listened to the voice within when the world demanded silence. And for that, they were punished. The crowd despises the individual who walks alone, because his solitude proves that he does not need the crowd. Even in friendship, the threat of individuality lurks. When you begin to grow faster than those around you, when your conversations deepen, when your silence becomes sharper, people start to pull away. They say you've changed, that you've grown distant, but what they mean is you no longer validate their stagnation. You no longer mirror their comfort zone. Your evolution is their discomfort, and instead of rising with you, they would rather pull you back into the familiar pit where nothing ever threatens them. In the politics of human emotion, individuality is treason. You are expected to think as they think, to feel as they feel, to love as they love. The moment you choose your own pace, you violate the unspoken contract of collective obedience. They will isolate you not because you are wrong, but because you are right too soon. The crowd cannot tolerate foresight. It cannot understand those who build what it cannot yet see. And when fear meets confusion, it becomes hostility. You will notice that those who follow the crowd always find comfort, but never greatness. They move together like a herd, believing safety lies in numbers. Yet their numbers are chains. Their approval is poison disguised as love. When you stop needing it, they panic. When you stop performing for them, they accuse you of arrogance. But in truth, your refusal to seek validation is a declaration of freedom. And freedom, to the enslaved mind, feels like rebellion. Do not mistake the crowd's unity for strength. It is not built on conviction but on fear. It exists to destroy anything that questions its illusion of equality. And when someone dares to rise, the instinct of the collective is not curiosity, but extermination. They gossip, they mock, they condemn, because they believe that if they can destroy your image, they can restore their illusion of safety. But what they fear most cannot be killed: the idea of independence. Individuality is contagious. The sight of one free man can ignite rebellion in 1,000 others. That is why the world suppresses the independent spirit. It is why conformity is taught so young and rewarded so often. A single mind that refuses to obey becomes a mirror that reflects the cowardice of millions. And so, hatred becomes their only defense. To walk alone is to walk against the current of history itself. But that current only flows toward mediocrity. The few who dare to step out of it are not carried by it. They redirect it. When you act from inner conviction rather than outer command, the world begins to resist you. The resistance is proof that you have broken from the pattern. It is proof that your existence has begun to mean something beyond imitation. You must come to understand that solitude is not punishment, it is privilege. For the crowd's acceptance is the death of individuality, and individuality is the soul of power. When you cease to belong, you begin to become. When you are hated for your difference, it is the first confirmation that you are free. Men spend their lives running from hate, desperate to be liked, desperate to be understood. They twist their words, they dull their edges. They kneel before the opinions of others. But here lies a secret the weak never learn. Being hated is inevitable. The only question that matters is why you are hated. For in that answer lies the measure of your power. If you are hated for your honesty, it means your words have cut through someone's illusion. If you are hated for your strength, it means your existence has reminded them of their weakness. And if you are hated for your ambition, it means you dared to climb while they chose to stay below. You cannot rise without disturbing the dust of envy. Every step toward greatness leaves footprints on fragile egos. To be hated, therefore, is not failure. It is evidence that you have begun to matter. Hatred, when it comes from the right people, is more valuable than praise from the wrong ones. The approval of fools is a curse disguised as comfort. It makes you forget who you are and blinds you to the price of conformity. But the hatred of cowards, the resentment of the idle, the whispering of the mediocre, those are medals of honor. They mean you have done what they could not. You have moved when they remained still. You have built when they only dreamt. The world is a stage ruled by insecurity. When you walk across it with conviction, you expose every false actor who survives by pretending. And because they cannot match your presence, they seek to destroy it. The art, then, is not to avoid hatred but to manage it, to direct it like a sculptor shapes marble. The wise man does not chase love, for love is fickle. He learns to channel hate, for hate is consistent. It reveals enemies more clearly than affection ever reveals friends. When people hate you, do not be quick to defend yourself. Let them speak. Let them reveal their hearts through their accusations. The things they say about you often describe what they fear in themselves. When they call you cruel, it is because they cannot imagine strength without gentleness. When they call you manipulative, it is because they cannot act with intention without feeling guilt. Their hatred is a confession written in emotion, and a man of reason reads it like scripture. I once wrote that it is safer to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. But understand, fear and hatred are cousins born of the same mother. Power when you command presence, when your will bends circumstances rather than yielding to them. Others feel small. They will not admit this, for pride forbids such honesty. So they translate their inferiority into anger. They dress their envy in moral outrage and call it righteousness. But what they truly hate is that you are untouchable. To be hated correctly is to master the balance between distance and dominance. Never beg to be understood. Never explain your motives to those who have already decided to misunderstand you. The more you justify yourself, the smaller you become in their eyes. The powerful speak with action, not apology. Let your results answer their doubts. The more you achieve in silence, the louder their hatred grows. And the louder their hatred grows, the clearer your superiority becomes. You must also learn to separate destructive hate from useful hate. Destructive hate comes from those beneath you, it is noise. But useful hate comes from those who once stood beside you and now cannot keep up. It forces you to refine your craft, to sharpen your strategy, to test your patience. In that sense, hatred becomes a teacher. It trains you to lead without emotion, to see the battlefield of human hearts without flinching. Understand that you cannot please everyone, and you should never try. Those who try to be loved by all will eventually be respected by none. A man who seeks universal approval must dilute his essence until there is nothing left worth admiring. Love given too easily is unstable. It shifts with fashion, with gossip, with convenience. Hatred, on the other hand, is loyal. Once they decide to despise you, they will watch your every move, and in watching, they become your unintentional disciples. They spread your name, they feed your legend, they keep your presence alive even when you are absent. Learn to let hatred do your work for you. The more they talk, the more you grow. The more they resist you, the stronger your influence becomes. For the public does not remember the agreeable. It remembers the controversial. The agreeable are forgotten because they never disturbed anyone's comfort. The hated are immortal because they forced the world to confront something real. Every revolutionary, every thinker, every creator who reshaped history carried a storm of resentment around him, but within that storm he found clarity. There is a cruel beauty in being hated for the right reasons. It frees you from the burden of pretending. It cleanses your circle of false loyalty. Those who truly stand with you remain, not because they must, but because they understand. Everyone else fades into the shadows they belong to. Hatred simplifies life. It filters noise. It shows you who among the crowd fears your rise and who stands unshaken by it. So when you feel the sting of resentment, do not retreat. Study it. Ask yourself who hates me and why. If the answer is that the lazy, the cowardly, and the dishonest despise you, then you are walking the correct path. But if the wise begin to despise you, then you have strayed. For the art of being hated is not to seek animosity, but to earn it through integrity. Let them hate your strength, not your deceit. Let them hate your truth, not your falsehood. Let their hatred remind you that you have chosen power over popularity, purpose over peace, and the difficult road over the forgettable one. Now you understand. Hatred is not a punishment. It is a consequence of awakening. The moment you begin to see clearly, to move deliberately, to speak truth without trembling, the world responds as it always has, with resistance. People do not hate you because they know you. They hate you because they can no longer control you. You have become unpredictable, untamed, and known. Every man who rises will become a mirror, a threat, and eventually, a target. The weak will hate your independence. The insecure will resent your confidence. The mediocre will despise your excellence. But beneath that hatred lies silent admiration, for you dared to do what they only dreamed of. The wise do not flee from hate, they transform it into armor. They let it shape their patience, sharpen their perception, and harden their will. Understand this: to live as you truly are is to walk alone through corridors where others fear to tread. But solitude is not emptiness, it is sovereignty. It is the throne from which you rule yourself. And only when you master yourself can you master the world. Do not waste your life chasing love from those who will never understand your purpose. The crowd's affection is fleeting, its hatred is eternal, and therefore, more honest. Let it come, let it speak, let it circle around you like wolves around fire. For the wolf fears the flame, even as it hungers for its warmth. So, when they whisper your name with bitterness, do not bow your head, rise higher. When they mock your silence, let your actions thunder louder than their words. And when the world secretly hates you, remember, it is only because you have become something it cannot ignore. For in the end, the goal is not to be loved by all, but to be remembered by few. And those few will know, you did not live to please the crowd, you lived to rule yourself.